Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in amma ba'd. So the next mas'ala, the fuqaha say, is you have calculated your amount of zakah, now to give it out. So not who to give it to, that's coming up in one of the upcoming lessons. But now the aspect of giving it out. The fuqaha say that if you are capable to give it out immediately, meaning the wealth is present, you are able to give it out, you won't be harmed to give it out, what I'm going to explain now, then you should give it out as soon as you can. There are situations when you can delay this giving out, which we call it sarf, but the fuqaha many times refer to it as ikhraj as well. They say if you fear, let's start with another one. Let's say they say, because that one day has a bit of explanation, I'm going to mention it, an important explanation. And that is, let's say you know somebody who is poorer and more in need than those around you, and that person is going to arrive in a few days or a couple of weeks. They say you're allowed to delay zakah for a small period of time. So it's basically, you can say, some of the tabi'een that Ibn Rajab quotes for this mas'ala, in his risala on this mas'ala, they mention a month. So perhaps you can go with that, a month, give or take or less. I think some mashayikh say 1 year. The fatwa of some mashayikh is 1 year. But in any case, the madhab is that you do it as soon as possible. So let's say within a couple of weeks, there's somebody who is poorer. You know he's going to come. Then you can delay your zakah until that person comes. Or you have family member who is in need, and that family member is not present, but the family member will come soon, then you can delay to give it to that person. Or the fuqaha say you fear harm. For example, the person, this is an important mas'ala, in zakah, ghina, wealth, richness is two types. There's ghina, there's wealth, richness that prevents you from taking zakah, and there's a type of richness that prevents you from, there's a type of richness that makes you give zakah. So there's two types. One type is owning the nisab for the hawl, here you give zakah. The other type is to have an amount, even if you don't pay zakah, but you are not eligible to take zakah. So there's two types. So you call this person in the chapter of zakah as rich if he has an amount that would make him not eligible for zakah, even though he doesn't pay zakah. But a person can have both. A person can be both. He can be somebody who pays zakah. He is somebody who pays zakah, but he can take zakah. For example, he has stuff that he's the sheikh, I forgot to mention it earlier, and that is the sheikh, for example, his opinion, we mentioned in the beginning of fiqh, is money, wealth that you've lost, you don't pay zakah on it, because it may not come back. Wealth that you've lost, meaning you don't know where it's found, where you hid it, or where you put it, not lost as in a transaction that you've lost, and you didn't profit. That wealth, for example, in the madhab, let's give the example on the madhab for the sake of fiqh. A person has wealth that he knows he owns. He has 20,000 that's lost. So he has to pay zakah, but he doesn't know where it is. So he's living every month in a manner that he's a faqir, so he can take zakah. Or a person gives zakah, but he needs wealth, he doesn't have enough wealth to get married. And we'd allow him to give zakah, we'll mention in the next dars or 2 dars later, on how much to give him for nikah. So he gives zakah, but he can also take zakah. So it's important to remember that. So we can say a person who is a faqir that has to give zakah. If he has to give zakah, it may harm him. He may need the money. Then in that case, it's allowed for him to delay the zakah until he is in a financial situation where he can give the zakah. So that's important to know. So it must be given out as soon as possible. Some people, because of the way governments are in taxes, then you delay your giving zakah, or you give it in portions. Especially if it's a big amount, because of tax and other reasons. So you may give it over a good few months. Because of this need, we say permissible. So when there's a specific need that does not allow you to give the zakah as soon as you can, then it's permissible to delay it. And not any need, but in the realm of what I mentioned, right? Then one or two other last masail with this. The fuqaha say, when you give zakah, you need to have the intention that what you are giving is zakah. So you need to know that this money I'm giving is zakah. You can't not have intention, or you can't give charity and then decide that it is zakah. You can't do that. You have to, at the moment you are giving it, it has to be the intention of zakah. You are allowed to have the intention a short while before giving the zakah. So they say the urf, again, like what we mentioned before. A small amount of time before, a few minutes, 5-6 minutes before, it's okay. You don't need to specifically have it on the moment. If you give it to somebody who is going to give it to the poor on your behalf, if they are going to give it to the poor soon, like quickly, in a few minutes or couple hours, then your intention suffices. If it's going to be after a long time, then you have the intention when you give it to the wakil, and when the wakil gives it to the poor, he has the intention that it's for zakah or zakah on this person's behalf, either of the two. Then for a person who is not baligh, his wali who's responsible for his wealth, not just any wali, the wali who's responsible for his wealth, that wali takes out the zakah on that person's behalf. So the wali then has the intention that this is zakah on behalf of so and so, and you give the zakah, Then when you give the zakah, the fuqaha say, if it's a person's habit to take zakah, then you don't need to inform him. In fact, they say it's makruh to inform him. But if it's not his habit to take zakah, then you have to inform him that this money is zakah. This money is zakah. Then when it comes to giving zakah, the last couple of masail, they say, the Hanbali fuqaha are very strict in this mas'ala. And they say the people, the poor that have most right to your wealth are the people of the place your wealth is in. The people of the place your wealth is in. So even if you are in a different place, but your wealth is in another place, you have bank accounts in another country, those people have more right to your wealth. They say you are allowed from jaiz, for you to give wealth to poor into the distance of 80 kilometers, the distance of travel. Beyond that, it is haram but permissible. Haram but permissible. So those around you is who you look at first. And then you can go beyond. Then that's how you go in beyond until the distance of travel. And we mentioned in the chapter of Zakatul Fitr, a few years ago, the aspect of giving your Zakatul Fitr out. Similar to Zakah, perhaps specifically when there's a need in other countries, but first look at those around you. The fuqaha say it is sunnah to give Zakah out yourself and to make it known that it is Zakah. So people do not think this person does not give zakah, and also they can follow his example. So they say you give it out yourself, even with zakatul fitr, because then you'd go yourself to look for the poor. You realize the situation of those around you. You'd give it to them yourself. You realize that they're poor and they need more. You may give more, or there's the situation of your brothers around you and sisters. So then that's the benefit of giving your zakah yourself compared to giving it to those who distribute it on your behalf. And then you'd also know, has it gone to somebody who deserves it or not? Is he rightfully a person who takes zakah? We'll mention that in the next lesson. So those are some of the masail connected to giving out zakah. They also mention that the person giving the zakah supplicates, and the person taking the zakah supplicates for the person who gives the zakah. And they mention specific du'as that you can recite. Allahumma ij'alhu maghnaman wa la taj'alhu maghraman, for the person giving, and they have a few. Those can be checked in the books. So those are some of the masail with regards to giving out the zakah. And the last couple of things is the fuqaha say that if you have wealth, then the zakah must be given from your average wealth, meaning in terms of quality. So this more so applies to animals and more so applies to crops, because your cash and stuff, they're the same, they're as good as the same. So they say you give from your average. You don't need to give from your best. If you want to give from your best crops, your best animal, that's down to you. But you don't give from your worst. You don't give from the lower quality. What you got to give is the average quality. If you have, you give it. If not, you can buy it. If you want to take out from the higher, you can. But from the lower one, you don't. Unless the one situation where you give your lower amount plus extra to cover the difference. Meaning, what would be the price of this average animal or this average crops? It would be, let's say, the difference between in price, in worth, between the average and the lower would be 20%. So then you give 20% more. You give 20% more if you are giving from the lower quality. So basically, you don't have to give from the higher. That's your choice. But from the lower, no, you don't give from the lower, but from the medium, you give zakah from that. And that's what the Shaykh says. 3 lines that I just summarized it there. And then the last thing, the Shaykh says in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, that is marfu', that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, وَفِي الرِّكَازِ الْخُمُسِ وَفِي الرِّكَازِ الْخُمُسِ. So rikaz is treasures. They say مَا دُفِنَ مَا وُجِدَ مِن دِفْنِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ. So before Islam came in totality, or in certain places, in countries or certain towns or cities in those countries, before Muslims came, if a person were to find, either in societies, they found something from pre-Islam, or meaning before the time coming of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or this was in a town before Muslims came. So after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but before Muslims came. If a person were to find treasures, if a person were to find something, clothing, if a person were to find like old kind of gold or silver coins that they used to have in certain periods of time, or he found treasures, or some things of like assets or things of kind that you found from pre-Islam, in one of the two situations I mentioned, either buried underneath the ground or even on the ground, even on top of the ground, you found it on the ground, or buried, or you found on top, then they say these things, that it has a sign on it to indicate that it is from pre-Islam in one of the two situations, then here you have to immediately, the finder of it, even if somebody is employed to dig for you, for example, in your land, the person who found this is the person you've hired. He's the owner of that thing, right? But he has to give a fifth of it, not as zakah, they include it in the chapter of zakah, because this is not deemed zakah, because you don't give it to the people of zakah, you give it a fifth of its worth for the benefit of the Muslims, for the general benefit of the Muslims. Then the rest of its worth, or the thing itself, is yours. The rest of the thing is yours. So that's with regards to rikaz. You give a fifth to the benefit of the Muslims, and the rikaz is that treasure that you found underneath the earth, or on top of the earth, There's one mas'ala, and that is regards to taqyid al-mubah, but I think we'll leave that because of the time. But the last thing with rikaz is that if you found this item, this treasure, this clothing or something, and it has no sign on it to indicate that it is from pre-Islam or non-Muslims before Islam came there, or it has a sign on it, but the sign is a sign that it is for Muslims, then in both the last two situations, it takes the rule of being an item that is a lost item that is found, called luqata. So this takes its own rules of announcing it for 1 year in a specific manner. We'll come to it in the end of fiqh, in the fiqh of transactions. And after 1 year of announcing it, nobody coming to take it, then the person owns it. And there's no zakah here, because it's luqata. But in the other situation where there's a sign of it belongs to the people before Islam, either before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or before Islam came to the place, then here you pay a fifth for it and the rest is yours. So this is whoever finds it owns it, whether young or old. And that's in summary with regards to these masail. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to teach us that which benefits us, and to benefit us with that which He teaches us. Wa sallallahu wasallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.